Hey, Peninsula Bible Fellowship. I have the privilege of talking with an old colleague and friend of mine from seminary. We actually both blogged a bit for the communications department there, but my career as a writer just did not blossom quite like hers. Amy has written for the Gospel Coalition, Relevant Magazine, and elsewhere, but she is much more than a blogger, and I'm excited to introduce you to her. And I've personally enjoyed Amy's work from afar. So hi, Amy. Thank you so much for being with us in our church.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This is really fun.
Both Amy and her husband, Austin, both graduated from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, and they together have planted a church in North Carolina called Trinity Church Greenville. But most recently, Austin and Amy had their firstborn, a daughter named Emerson Grace. And as if things couldn't be busier, Amy is also a speaker, and she creates content for both digital and print studies, biblical, exegetical, theological, and resources for children and kids as well. So we're going to talk a bit about that. But Amy, one of your focuses and passions seems to be for the everyday person in order that they can have resources to go deep into God's word. So where did that passion come from, and how did it develop for you?
Yeah, before I went to Gordon Conwell, I went to Bible school at Moody Bible Institute. And I think that was the place where my personal time with the Lord, my personal quiet time really flourished. I went from sort of reading one or two verses a day or reading one or two Psalms, but not quite sure what to do next. Not quite sure how to be more intentional with my quiet time. And then at Moody, I learned these skills of Bible study. I mean, it seems so foundational and fundamental, but I learned Bible study skills and basically filled a toolbox with tools to help me study my Bible in depth, and my time with the Lord really flourished as a result. So I got to carry that on through my time at Moody and then learn more at Gordon Conwell. And so one of the things that I was really struck by was this might sound a little silly, but how easy it was to learn those things, how simple it was. And I was sort of disappointed that I hadn't learned it sooner, because I could have implemented those in my daily quiet time. So I really wanted to make those things accessible to people. I know there are a lot of people who can't go to Bible school, a lot of people who say, I would love to go to seminary, but that's not this season of life for me, or it's not a financial possibility. Or geographically, they don't live near a seminary. And so I want to make those tools available to people so that people can go deep in God's word, because I really do believe what God's word says, it is life and it changes our lives.
Prior to even having kids, you had already developed a company for kids. And I'm really excited to share this with our church, called Tiny Theologians, which has resources for kids in the areas of theology, church history, biblical literacy. And my family has certainly enjoyed your resources, and I want to just highlight a couple of them. The Christ at the Center cards, these are just amazing. The quality and the content of these, it has a summary of each book of the Bible and some additional information at the end, and it's just really, really wonderful. Really enjoy these. These aren't even for my kids, these are for me. I benefited from them. And then the other one that we've used has been your ABCs of theology cards. And
Your wife laminated them.
she laminated them, yeah. So we really use them, yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
and it has information on the backside too. But we've benefited from them. And so can you share, how did that company come about, and why was that a passion for you?
I was teaching online Bible courses, and I had sort of this big gap. And this is sort of the behind the scenes reason for Tiny Theologians. But I had this big gap in the women that were subscribing. I had sort of early career young professionals, and I had empty nesters. And I was like, wait, where's this big gap of young moms? And the more I reached out, the more I realized that young moms were like, I do not have time. I don't have time to study theology. I don't have time to study my Bible. And, but at the same time, they were sort of saying, how would I teach my kids these things? And so Tiny Theologians, the first set of flashcards, those ABCs of theology, were my sort of subversive, but like subversive in the positive sense, attempt to teach young moms theology, because there is a real impulse that we have that we will do things for our kids that we won't do for ourselves. And I wanted to help young moms learn theology, even as they were trying to teach it to their kids. So one of the cultural myths in the church, I think, is that we have to be totally put together theologically. We have to be totally studied. We have to be totally prepared for every theological question our kids are going to ask, and we can't learn alongside them. And I just don't think that's true. I think that there is a good place for learning alongside our kids. And so I wanted to equip young moms in particular who were saying, I can't study theology, and say, hey, go through these ABC cards with your kids and you're going to learn a lot. And that's a good thing. But also for the parents that say, I am studying my Bible. I want to put quality resources in front of my kids. Josh, you've probably experienced this. If you've ever flipped open a children's Bible and you get to like a story about, Noah, and it says something like the whole world was evil, but there was one man, and God chose Noah because Noah was good. And God didn't choose Noah because he was good. God chose Noah because God always preserves a remnant. Like that's like the good theology. But kids' Bibles often like water it down. They turn a lot of stories into moralism and stuff like that. And so I just really craved putting the good stuff in front of people.
I went to your website again, checking it out again. And I was surprised because you had already put out a Bible Basics homeschool curriculum for free. And I texted that to Tara right away. But tell us how that project came about, because it seems pretty timely.
I had all these families reaching out to me saying, what would you recommend? I'm homeschooling my kid, and I didn't expect to be homeschooling. Our schools aren't reopening, or we're doing all virtual. And even hearing from parents, this was the one that really excited me. Hearing from parents, our school decided to go all virtual, which was an adjustment for us mentally. But now I realize my kid is going to get math, science, literature from their public school. But now I get to do Bible with them. Like their public school wouldn't teach them Bible, but now I get to do that with them. And so how can I make the most of this opportunity having my kids home? And so I really wanted to create something really simple for parents. Most homeschool parents right now aren't veterans in homeschooling. There are some out there, but most parents homeschooling this year haven't done it before or are only a year or two into it. So I wanted to create something super simple. And that's what Bible Basics is. Bible Basics is basically a curriculum template. And so it allows parents to take any of the 3 ABC cards that we have. We have the ABCs of theology, ABCs of God's attributes, and the ABCs of the names of God, and turn those into their school year's Bible curriculum. So it's 5 days a week of curriculum questions and answers, activity sheets, application questions, that sort of thing. And so it helps parents use a really simple resource like ABC cards and make a full-blown curriculum out of it.
Would you have any practical advice for parents at home with kids, perhaps with more time than they're used to? What possible opportunity is there? What encouragement would you give them, especially as we approach fall?
For some families, family devotionals is going to be the way to go. They're going to love that. They're going to do it with ease, and they're going to get into the rhythm of it and attach to that. And I think that that's wonderful. But I think for parents where that feels like it's very daunting, where that feels totally overwhelming, they don't know how they would do it. They don't know what they would do. They don't know how they'd get in the routine of that. I think letting the idea of family devotionals as the mental concept that a lot of people have, letting that go, like relinquishing the expectation you have on yourself for it to look a certain way. Start simple would be my first piece of advice, and then choose good tools, because a good tool is going to be the woodwork on which the fruit grows. And so if you think of it like a trellis, where you grow, if you're going to grow ivy or something like that, the ivy is the fruit. The ivy is the growth that's going to happen organically, and God's going to do that in your kids' lives and in your life as you lead them. But the structure of the trellis that you choose is going to give it shape and form. And so choose good resources, because those resources are going to give it shape and structure. So I think starting small and then choosing good resources as your partner is going to serve families really well as they seek to get into the Word.
That's so good. Start small, choose good resources. Yeah, I think that's so simple and yet incredibly helpful. Well, Amy was supposed to come out here this fall and do a workshop with us before literally the whole world changed. So hopefully we'll have you out sometime in the future. But be sure to check out amygannett.com or tinytheologians.com. Or you can follow her on Instagram for updates on current online studies that she's offering. Or if you simply want to be inspired to bake good bread or put together a great charcuterie board for Sabbath, All of that is available online. Amy, thanks so much for being here with us.
It is so fun. Thankful for it.